All right, guys, I'm Nicolette, and today Brian and I are here to talk about securing industrial robotics and what IT and engineers need in order to work better together. Now, we're joined by David Smith, Director of Supplier Marketing and Product Management over at Sager Electronics, and Miriam Coladonato, who's Senior Product Marketing Specialist for Cybersecurity over at Phoenix Contact. And they're going to be talking to us today about why cybersecurity is way more than just a product or a thing you need to have, and really what the importance is there. So thank you both for joining us today. We really appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Great to be here.
And it's exactly what you're saying. Cybersecurity is just more than just one thing that you're going to do within your entire network. To be able to implement a good security practice, you have to think about your goal. What's your goal? Maybe you're following a standard, maybe you're following a new application, or you're connecting something. And that's the key word, connectedness. Everything is becoming connected, everything. Our devices, our smart devices at home connects directly out to the internet. And now all that data gets connected to a cloud, to a central server for you to be able to use. Now you have to move or think about that in an application for industrial, right? For an industrial setting, for a robot, for example. This is where that big IoT idea is coming from. And it is following the IoT original idea. And now that oh my God, I can't say this. Connectedness.
Yeah, there it is.
And now all that connectedness, it's getting pretty scary, because if you're connecting these robots, these machines, this industrial equipment that is pretty much keeping the world running, it means that everybody can access it and everybody can hack it. So,
well, you know what, Miriam, you brought up the words IoT and IIoT, and I think it would be great if we kicked off this discussion by kind of about network security and industrial robotics by really addressing the basics there, and kind of, we use those terms interchangeably sometimes, but they're really very different. So maybe you want to address kind of the difference between IoT and IIoT for the audience.
Definitely. And I think I want to start with an example, because like everybody would get it immediately. IoT, Internet of Things, right? Nothing more than another acronym. And what we talk about Internet of Things is just an example of connecting our data that we're already producing, right? And make it something meaningful through analytics and maybe what is called dashboarding, right? So if we, for example, talk about like a wearable device or a health tracker, or Apple devices like you carry, or like a Fitbit type of application, you are counting your steps. And this is probably one of the most basic examples I can give. You're counting your steps. The mark is 10,000 steps. Every day you want to do 10,000 steps. And that specific sensor, now we're talking about sensors, right? You're carrying with you. And every day is counting your steps, 10,000 steps a day. I got this. You have a month of 10,000 steps. All of this data is connected to your phone, to that app, right? Through some type of Bluetooth. Your phone is connected out through the cellular network, used to the internet, right? Using that 4G, 5G, whatever technology you're using at your phone. And then because you're already on the internet, that data is actually going to an internet server for Apple Health or Fitbit.com. And that's when you use your login and password to see your month, right? Your dashboarding, what we're calling our visualization system. That's what's helping us to like, hey, tomorrow I want to do it or next month I want to do 11,000 steps. And not just that, the app also gives you the connectedness part of the human, right? Like the networking. If you connect it to Facebook, you can show your friends, or you can, challenge your mom to do steps. Like all of that is what is motivating us to use this IoT idea. Now, let's take this idea and think about all the data, or the way the data travels out to the internet and even back to you as the user, because the goal is the behavioral change of the user, right? We want to do more steps the next day. Mm-hmm. Now with that, IIoT, or call it Industry 4.0, to me, honestly, all of them are pretty close synonyms. Right. So the IIoT, or Industrial Internet of Things, is about the same thing. It's the data that we're already producing, right? The sensors that, for example, let's get very small, a robotic arm might be producing already some of that data. The motor is moving at this speed this many times per day. Or I'm doing this movement 3 times a week. All of that data, it needs to be moved out to a more smart place or to an analytics place, whatever that might be local at that manufacturing company, or that might be on the cloud. But overall, that same sensor data needs to be moved through that analytics place to get analyzed and get dashboard, and then sent to whoever needs that data. Let me give you a very kind of early adopter example that I think it's happening right now, and it is the predictive maintenance. That predictive maintenance is pretty much the machine telling the service engineering company, hey, I'm going to break a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month before it actually breaks. And that has to do a lot of data with the vendor data, right? This motor is supposed to be running 100 years at this speed, plus the real information from the data, right? The live data. All of this accumulated together on that analytics center, and then dashboarded to the user or the engineering company saying, hey, this robot might need some assistance or might need some help or might break down within the next month or so.
So we see a lot of robots, right? We're talking about robots in manufacturing here, and we see a ton of robots being used. And robots, same thing. They're communicating a lot of data, and there's security requirements around that. So when it comes to data and network security, what are some of the key things to consider in that space?
I would say both, right? So you have to figure out what's your goal as a company. Are you following a specific standard, right? For example, IEC 62443, which is getting really big on manufacturing, on the industrial setting. The next one would be protecting your network, because as soon as you connect all of these devices that needs to transfer the data, then you're creating kind of like the way in to get to that robot for that hacker. So thinking maliciously here, you want to make sure that network is protected, and only the data that needs to travel out, it's allowed to travel out. And then that's the other thing, the data security. That's where you use more like encryption. The data is another part, because data in motion is going from A to B, and not just that, cloud protocols or the way the cloud talks to be able to do the analytics is not the same Modbus packets or Ethernet IP packets that we know or the machine produces. So that machine or that data has to be actually transferred to a cloud-based protocol, for example, MQTT. Things like that to be able to be fed to that analytic system. But no matter what it is, like as IEC 62443 standard for cybersecurity, which is probably one of my personal favorites, but then also like a defense in depth. Defense in depth is a pretty common concept in industrial application because it's an existing network. It's been running for years on now. And you just grab different defensive mechanisms around that critical asset, that robot that is creating the data, or maybe that plant network, or maybe that line. It all depends. It's very flexible because if you think about it, every industrial manufacturing facility is different. So the decisions have to be made by that owner and put those defensive layers around where it makes sense on the different processes at that point.
So what are some of the overlooked vulnerabilities?
Vulnerabilities in an industrial network are countless. I mean, you have to think about devices at the device level, right? The PLCs might have different vulnerabilities. I mean, the people working at your company have it's part of a vulnerability. The vendors you let in, the emails you receive, and the way to manage those vulnerabilities, it becomes a little bit complicated. So that's why you start hearing about the industry's actually started kind of moving into what is called risk management, and it's managing those risks, understanding majority, if not all of the vulnerabilities that you have within your plant, categorize them, and then from there, attack them or be able to secure them at certain levels and see what are your low risk, your medium risk, and your high risk, and you focus on that, right? So if these vulnerabilities are your high risk, like internal people, for example, clicking on the wrong email, maybe creating some type of ransomware, that would be a really high risk right now, like these days. So doing cybersecurity awareness training at every employee, even if it's, the coffee lady that has a computer on your network, it's even important to make sure that they know what they're doing and clicking on the right links and not the wrong ones.
So can you talk a little bit about safety systems and almost safety versus security?
Oh yeah. So that's another portion, right? Like
Mhm.
of the network, not just the vulnerability of devices. Now you're talking about vulnerability of a process itself. And for the listeners out there, I want to make sure, like, there have been hacks, and the example I want to mention is called Triton, of a safety system in industrial control systems. There is a specific hack for a safety PLC that will override all the safety systems you have within that process. So if you have not heard about it, I'll encourage you to kind of look for it. But Triton, it's a hack that was affecting safety systems. So if you think about it now, it's a cyber physical engagement. It's a cyber attack that goes in through your safety PLC, and a life or a limb could be lost on a physical asset, on a human body, because of that hack. That's what is called cyber physical. And with that simple hack, and you have to think about it, the safety versus the security, you want to protect, you want to secure your safety systems as well. Why? That's one example because of that one vulnerability. But overall, it's also part of it, the entire, if you kind of taking a step back, the entire defense in depth concept. You can protect your main PLC from the process, from the robots running. But now your safety systems should be a separate network. Right. That even if your main PLC breaks, at least you're not endangering any lives. Now your safety systems will be protected, different network. And if you think about it, not just to kind of take it a little bit and take it a little bit step back and explain safety, we implement safety in industrial control systems to protect the human from the machine, correct? Mm-hmm. Doesn't matter the process. Now, right. If you think about security, we implementing security in cybersecurity settings to protect the machine from the people, from vulnerabilities that are in the network, from ransomware, from anything that a hacker, a malicious person can do into that machine.
So what are some of the other common causes of concern here?
I mean, the biggest one for me, and I think I already mentioned it, is the human factor. I would say your network is always as strong, or your chain is always as strong as your weakest link. And unfortunately, we are just curious, vulnerable humans, right? It doesn't matter how important our network is. We're always going to be tempted to, if an email looks really good, it looks it's coming from our bank, and it's easy to fool a human to click on a user instead of trying to actually break through a firewall or break through a thing when a click can allow you to get in. So I would say the biggest concern for everybody in the industrial control systems will still be that human factor, your employees, your third-party vendors, who's hosting your data, who's helping you host that data. Or if you're doing an IoT application, how we started the conversation, we want to connect this machine data up. You're probably going to have third-party vendors helping you simulate, helping you demonstrate, helping you move the data around. Even that data that is not your production data can be used to take advantage of your network eventually. So if that data that is just a demo or a site simulation might not be protected, that data can be used against you in the future.
So we would imagine then, Miriam, that at least having some sort of basic understanding of the types of standards that are in place would kind of arm these teams, for lack of a better way of saying, arm them with some of the knowledge that they can use then to protect themselves. So, would it be possible for you to talk a little bit about these standards, at a high level?
In the industrial control systems, there is a lot of standards that you can follow. However, some of them are more popular than others. I'm going to mention a couple of them. First one off is actually one regulated by the federal government, which is called NERC-CIP. It is, a group of standards. It's enforced by anybody or any asset owner who's generating or distributing power elected into the grid. So that is one of them. However, that information doesn't or wasn't easily translated into different industry, for example, in manufacturing. And that's where ISA 99 together with IEC created the IEC 62443 standard, which has to do a lot more with those manufacturing settings, automation, smart factory. I really like it. It's my personal favorite lately because it distributes the weight of the responsibility. I will just to go really briefly over it is it will put weight on the vendor. So Phoenix Contact has the goal of demonstrating or being pre-approved to have secure products, secure firmware, secure development, secure life cycle for the product. And it's not just that, we're the product experts. So we will recommend you some type of configuration changes or levels of standards that if you configure it that way, you will follow the security level you want to achieve within IEC 62443. The other responsible party would be the integration services, right? These asset owners work with engineering services because they might not have the resources to bring in a new machine, or maybe they want to do an IIoT idea, a cloud idea. They want to bring an expert to help them do that. They have to have also IEC 62443 certification, which means they're going to be protecting your data and they're going to be keeping you isolated, not keeping you out on the radar. And of course, at the asset owner level is you want to create your network drawings, you want to do a risk managed assessment on your network where your highest rank vulnerability versus your lowest rank, and a defense in-depth concept around that network that you already have in place.
So in this discussion, we really wanted to highlight the value of IT and engineering, or what we like to call OT, right? Working together to kind of combat these security concerns that you've been talking about. And to start us off on this portion of our discussion, why don't we talk a little bit about how these groups can kind of team up to tackle, all of these challenges and what kinds of best practices they can put into action?
In short, I mean, that's exactly IT and OT have to work together. And being not part of a manufacturing facility, you might miss it, but when you are there and you're helping them, you see that there is a gap of communication, of teamwork, of goals. They're so different. There's so different departments. If you think about it, IT versus OT, the IT guys are always, they've been secure by nature, right? They've always been there trying to keep that network secure. And mostly it's because they're protecting some type of data. They follow generally what is called a CI triad: confidentiality, integrity, and availability in that order. So they want to make sure the data is confidential, right? The employee data, the emails that we receive, the secret sauce that we're making down at the plant, right? All of that, they want to make sure they keep really secure. At the same time, allowing customers to see the data that they want to see, maybe distributors or external partners to see the information that they want to see, but everything else protected, including employee information, of course. Now think about it on the OT standpoint, the operation side. What does an engineer that is overlooking a plant network cares about? Availability, right? That plant has to be running 24/7, 365, because if there is any type of unplanned downtime, that's money going down the drain, correct? Which means if we talk the same about the CI triad, confidentiality, availability, and integrity, now we're flipping it around for OT. Availability is the most important thing that they care when you matter about security. Availability, integrity of the data, make sure the data that is kind of flowing through, it needs to flow through. But then the last one is confidentiality. If you think about it, a 1 or a 0 in an industrial control system is all the same. A water plant in New Mexico versus a water plant in New York, they're trying to do the same process. The process is known, so the data is really known. They don't care if that data gets leaked. It's more the connectedness, the connectivity, and how to protect it. Now, going back to how to put these two guys together. I've always been a really good fan of IT. They have the right idea, they just don't understand the goals that the engineering team has on that manufacturing network, on that industrial network. So, and then the other same thing goes to the engineering team, right? They have goals and they need to work with IT to make sure that happen. For example, they need to connect a machine or they need to send data up to a cloud. And most of the time, these two teams cannot communicate just because of that lack of just sitting down, talking about their needs. How can we make it work together?
Right. A lot of times they don't even know where to get started, right?
Exactly. A simple meeting.
Yeah.
How was your day today? How are your kids? Like, I will always recommend to just get together and talk about it. And this has to start. So this is a big problem at the corporate level. This has to start not just with the IT and OT managers. This has to start above at the C-level suite, where these guys have to see that, oh yeah, this is where the future is going. We need to have, if you think about it, an IT department focusing on OT, or an OT department that kind of is embedded on the IT side of things, because these two are going to be working together all the time. If we want smart factory idea, if we want that IIoT idea. So I would recommend, think global. IT has security policies already built in for the entire infrastructure, for the entire company. But then think global, translate those policies, and then act local as an engineer. And when I say act local, it's more at the operational industrial network. This policy says we need to make sure only the allowed users are connected to the internet, right? And some pages are restricted, some pages are not. On the operational side, I wouldn't allow anybody to connect out to the internet. This network should not connect out to the internet. So it's like, use the same policies, but translate the needs to what you know and what is really important on that infrastructure, which is to be running 24/7. And not just that, it's use IT. So as an engineer, they are the experts on security. They have tools. I'm not going to say infinitive, but they have great tools already embedded within their network that help that enterprise site stay secure. For example, SIEMs, they have centralized security. They already might have a software that is helping them do risk and vulnerability management. So if you take those softwares and maybe use them to connect your data or your devices down at the plant level to connect to that software, or maybe create a secondary just for OT, that will allow you already to be a step ahead. And it will allow you to do more proactive security than reactive security. That is what Nicolette was saying earlier, that is not just a device, right? It's way more than that. And that's how you start those conversations. How can we use your tools in our network to be a little bit more protected?
So once you start the conversations, right, you got everyone talking, but how do you actually go and work together? How do you start that process to integrate the two teams?
That is a great question. And I've seen it firsthand. And the way that I've seen it, it works best. Yes, obviously the first meetings are great, but I call them field workshops. You're going on a field trip. You will take operational guys, that team that's going to be leading the process, and you're going to take them to IT and you're going to let them shadow, and you're going to let them field trip their work and see what they do and what are they doing with the security, right? The security team, we're focusing on security here. And same thing for the IT guys. You're going to grab a couple of IT guys, rack them out of the data center and put them on the operational network and see how that's running. And that's when you start opening perspectives on both of the teams' mind, right? Oh yeah, you guys can't be doing this. Or for example, you guys can't be doing Windows operating system updates every Tuesday because that machine can go down, versus we do it every Tuesday because that's the way we need to patch our systems.
So now, should they train together, or besides just shadowing each other, should they do training at the same time?
Yeah, of course. Besides, the shadowing, that I think it just opens their eyes on, like, there's a whole new world, IT and OT. The training, that would be the continuation. right? The continuation of meetings, a training of the vulnerability of an operating system versus a PLC could be different. And that's just kind of part of the evolution of this team. And that's when you start seeing when maybe a couple of IT engineers or OT engineers and IT personnel get together and form that new department. And that new department is responsible for the security of the entire security of the network down at that site.
So I think that you've given us a lot of really eye-opening information here, and I think the audience will find it very useful. But I'd like to maybe talk a little bit about Phoenix and Sager and that relationship and how you guys are assisting folks in the industry and what your role is here in terms of cybersecurity.
We can start with the devices, right? Let's start with the devices. As you mentioned, I am the product marketing specialist, and my day-to-day is to help the user implement industrial firewalls, industrial VPN, and our industrial router, which is the FL MGuard device. Within the MGuard device, we also have a more service or a cloud service that we call the MGuard Secure Cloud. Devices like the MGuard can be integrated into operational networks for network security, right? Zoning, isolation. And it's not just that. The same device can help you connect your third-party vendors if they need to remote into those robots through the MGuard Secure Cloud. And of course, we have security features there. So using you guys out there on the field, pretty much passing that message, that's kind of like the first level application, right? The device level. But not just that. Phoenix Contact is really expanding in what we're calling the Phoenix Contact SIP, or the Phoenix Contact Critical Infrastructure Protection. And the way we're seeing this relationship with our distribution channel, with our customers, is we're pretty much grabbing and helping a customer on the cybersecurity side do a 360-degree approach. So imagine that circle split into a pie of three, where the first pie is the device security, right? The device itself. So we focus a lot on the IEC 62443 standard for the vendor side, which is secure development lifecycle, continuation of the firmware security, and how the product or how the features need to be configured appropriately so that product is secure within your network. The other side of things is the solutions, secure solutions. We have in Phoenix Contact, we have a variety of critical infrastructures. We've been talking about manufacturing and robotics. I mentioned a little bit about utility, but water, wastewater, healthcare, automotive. There is so many different industries there that it's really hard to kind of focus on one. So with that, in our solutions team, it actually helps us focus, in our vertical management team, it helps us focus on what are the needs and where is that specific industry going, and then apply at a vertical level, not just per industry, the entire cybersecurity and what they care about. And then the last one is the network engineering services piece. So not just, and that's a new team that just started here in the US, maybe a couple of years old, but our NES team, our NES team, Network Engineering Services, it's going to help, or it will helping you guys help the customer implement these devices. Again, and it's not just the implementation. Think about it. For example, an MGuard can help you, isolate the systems, but as I mentioned on the IT/OT example, those industrial infrastructure devices that we have, managed switches, industrial wireless devices, the MGuard, those devices talk to that IT software. And who knows better to connect those devices to the IT software than us? So it's like that additional help from the engineering services team to help you integrate devices, to help the distribution side integrate those devices at the end customer level. And by that, raising the trust that the customer might have on you guys and might have on us as a vendor.
David, did you want to speak to that?
Yeah, so Nicola, thanks for asking that question, because I do think it's critical for, so Sager and Phoenix Contact have been partnered together for quite a long time, over 40 years. We were actually the first electronic distributor here in the U.S., franchise for Phoenix Contact. So we understand product very, very well. What is really interesting about this conversation is that we have to continue to listen to our customers. And so when we specify product or help to specify product with the engineers, we got to be hearing and listening for things like what Miriam is talking about. And we might not ever become that cybersecurity expert with the Phoenix MGuard or the switches and so forth, but we need to be listening for that. And then we go to the Nest team and Miriam at Phoenix Contact and really bring in the guns, so to speak, to make certain that we kind of wrap the solution together. That's really the value proposition that we have. We can stock a lot of products and introduce a lot of new products, but really supporting the customers in a much more complete way by understanding the true facets and really the benefits of our manufacturers like Phoenix Contact. That's where we add the value for our customers.
Brian, is there anything else you wanted to ask Miriam and David today?
No, thank you both for joining us today. It was really informative.
And would you guys like to leave the audience with any place they can learn more information?
Definitely. We do have a landing page, a marketing landing page within Phoenix Contact. It's pretty straightforward to get there, www.phoenixcontact.com/cybersecurity. I mean, that will just get you to very cool general information, vendor oriented, of course, but will still get you there. If I could do a little self-promotion as well, you can feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn, because I do put a lot of information out there that has to do with cybersecurity on any industry. It depends on what I'm doing right now, what project I'm hitting, and then I'll just share it with pretty much all my audience out there in LinkedIn.
Yeah, and on the Sager side, we have a lot of customers in this industrial space, and so that's why this particular conversation is very important, and securing some of those transactions that Miriam is talking about ultimately does become very important to our customers. We're just looking forward to continuing to being able to support Phoenix Contact as we have for 40 some odd years, and really bringing new information and new support services to those customers. So excited to be here today.
Well, thank you both again. We really appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you.